I am live. Well, that's a good thing because I tried to get on Saturday and I couldn't get live. Well, I mean, I was alive, but I couldn't be on live. Some turkey sent you? Well, that's good, Brian. Thank you, Dean.
Some turkey sent you? Well, that's good, Brian. Thank you, Dean. Some turkey sent you?
Oops, wrong. Turn that speaker off. There we go. Let me just see here. I was checking a couple things. Gobble, gobble. This is not the gobble, gobble room. Brian's calling a goose. Garrett's not in here because he said he was going to go walk the dog instead. Tina, do you need to go walk the hounds? Brenda, if you're on, say hi. Just so I know. Tina, I could not figure out for the life of me what you were trying to tell me earlier. Excuse me. I kept trying, because of the way it was in the text or the message, I thought you were trying to tell me I'd left a word off at the end, and I kept running right past that what. I just kept reading it a why. Oh, buddy, hey. Come here. Come up here and say hi. Come on. Stand up here and say hi to everybody. You want to? Come here. Come here for a minute. Oh, say hi to Tina. Get your claws out of my shoulder skin. Say hi, Tina. You just wanted to drop in and say hello, didn't you? Or at least see what was going on. You still hadn't eat those treats in the floor. What's up with that? Not like you to pass up a snack. Yep, it's Teddy. She said Danny says hi. She said Danny said hi. He said hi, Danny. He stood back up to see. I guess he likes it better when he can just be on by himself. If you just stand and do that the whole show, people might think I'm crazy, but I could just talk to you, couldn't I? It's the Tim and Teddy show. Car key probably won't be here tonight. That would have been good. She could have got to see Teddy. I'll have to tell her in the replay, if she sees the replay, to look out for him. What are you looking at? What are you looking? They're talking about you on here. Well, he's a little embarrassed. He really can't read that much. He does more, sound interpretation. He's kind of like a self-taught guitar player. He knows how to play the music, but he can't really read music. So, like Teddy knows how to do things like his name's called, he responds, or if he hears the cat food can open, he knows when it's time to go eat. That sort of thing. But if everybody sends you an email, you just don't know what to do with it, do you? I have to read them for him. Dean's awesome too. Everybody knows Dean's awesome. Well, I hadn't even clicked my own like button. I don't know if that's fair or not. But I do it every time. Maybe I should start clicking the thumbs down, be the thumbs down guy for my own chat. What do you think? Hey there, Amy. Welcome in. I gotta ask one question of you, Amy. How many points won yesterday's trivia game? I just knew I was on the verge of a breakthrough if I could have stayed a little bit longer. Thank you, Dean. Excuse me, guys. Amy, I actually knew a lot of the answers yesterday, but I couldn't type fast enough to get them in there. And then I had a couple that were like right on the tip of my tongue. Oh, I know, Brian. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding also. Anybody getting rained on tonight? Let's do a weather report real quick. It's hot and off and on stormy here in Tennessee. It's been that way for a few days. Fortunately, we didn't get the rain that some of the areas around here got that washed out bridges and such. I believe Sevierville over near Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge area, I think they had one wash out last night. Hey, well, thank you, Brian. Your internet isn't fast enough. I see people typing the answers before I hear the question. I've had that problem too, Tina. That's not too unusual. I mean, that used to frustrate the hound out of me too, especially when I actually did know some of them. No rain in the Orlando area, just hot. Are you guys getting over 100 right now, Dean? Brian, are you on the West Coast? Are you in a super hot zone? Clear and 74. I wish it was 74 here. I looked a little while ago and I think it was still 88. Let me see what, yeah, well, it was 88 a little bit ago. It still says 88. Now it's in the 70s. It's dropped down a little bit. That's about as cool as it get. What do your lows get to, Tina? I know we're not supposed to be talking weather, but I thought you were in California, Brian. Is it? I saw some areas in California that were going to be over 100 today or tomorrow. Also, just wondering if you were in those areas. Northern California was supposed to be hot. Over around where the monarchs live was supposed to be near 100, I think. Oh, okay. Well, okay. How was your temperature today, Brian? Whatever coast you're on. I savvy left coast too, but I think that's the same one I'm talking about. Perhaps not. If anybody in here tried to sign up, it was 86 earlier in Anaheim, now it's 77. Well, that's about the same as here then. Well, Tina, you might have a point there. You might have a point. Unless we start arguing about who's got the better weather. There's always been a little part of me that wishes I'd been born somewhere way up closer to Canada. Or at least, or maybe still up close to Canada. Wyoming, Montana, somewhere out there where it doesn't get so blasted. Didn't used to get so blasted hot. I was born and raised here, but dang if I ever got used to the heat. That's one reason I don't know if I would ever be able to go to Florida. I have lived in Florida, but I don't remember being so dang hot. Now the sun was bright, and the sun would burn you, but I don't remember it being this hot. Not all the time. Well, I don't know, Tina. Where do you come out on climate change? I've flown over Tennessee, but never been there. Well, you ought to come on, Brian. If you've lived out west all your life, well, you've flown across it though. Everybody I know from out west that comes back east talks about how green everything is back here compared to out there. And somebody recently told me it was so green it hurt their eyes. I always thought green was sort of soothing for the eyes. What's Tina saying now? You got to remember, it gets blasted hot for our thick blood. I think it's always been hot. Oh yeah, I think it has been too, Tina. I mean, I can't. Brenda and I were down there one time, and it was might have been near her birthday, which was August, and we actually never went down in the summer. It was always too hot for us, but we went down once, and man, was it, it was horrible. And we stayed at the Contemporary. Or no, we didn't. We stayed at the Poly for like 3 nights, I think, or maybe 2 nights. Couldn't afford to stay too long. Bad thing about that was, I guess I'll never forget this. I parked our van. We had a minivan back then. Yes, I drove a minivan. Parked it out in the parking lot at Polynesian, but I parked it near some shrubberies or something. And who knew that the sprinklers would come on and it would get the inside of our van wet. So for the rest of the years we owned that van, it smelled stale. It smelled like the carpet was wet. Smelled just like the sprinkler. Maybe it was that ozony water or whatever they put in it down there to make it smell different. Yeah, our birthdays are in the summer, and there's no way you could get us down to Florida then. Yeah, well, so's Brenda's and the girls. I don't know. Tina, is yours this month? My girls are all in the month of August. We got one the 14th, one the 22nd, and one the 30th. So every 8 days we have a birthday in this house, other than mine. Huh, really, Brian? Well, I don't know if that's. Well, that does kind of surprise me because I keep hearing that all the Californians are moving to Colorado and Wyoming and Montana. Okay, I won't tell nobody. You don't want anybody singing to you. Actually, that's not all. I knew a couple other people born in that month. My coworker that I hung around with at work, and we worked together out in the field. Her birthday was August 25th. In Texas and Florida. Yeah, I'm sure that's probably true. Everybody, I hear Mark talk. He talk about all the Californians going, to Wyoming, and I figure they can't all be moving to Wyoming because there's still nobody lives in Wyoming. Hey, Carol, there you are. You missed Teddy. Okay. Oh, that guy. Yes, Tina. That's exactly who I thought you were talking about. Hey, Teddy. Stand up here and say hi to Carol. Come here. Come here. Come up here and say hi. Stand up. No, don't roll over and act cute. Stand up. Come on. I'll get him to stand up. He was standing up in here talking to everybody, Carol, right before you got here. Aren't you? Carol's here. What, you want to say hi to Carol? Huh? You want to say hi to Carol? Well, there's his head. You might be able to see him. There he is. Say hi to Carol. Say hi to Carol. Say hi, Miss Carol. Tina said you had a sweet face. Boy, if she only knew, didn't she? He's got a battle scarred face too, Tina. Him and his sister are still very rough with each other. And she's got stilettos for claws, and I think she sliced his nose open right here. Just a wee bit, didn't she? She finished it. Carol's not going to fight with Teddy, but she's going to fight with everybody else. Stand by one here. My wife's asking me something. Weirdo? Me? Okay, I got a number on my phone. I don't know what that is. Did she come in the room? Stilettos for claws. Yeah, it's very sharp ones. Not the kind you walk on, Tina. They're like daggers. You ever see the? I think it was Sylvester the cat. Every once in a while, he'd whip out his switch claws on somebody. I always thought that was pretty humorous. Well, there's Garrett. He got in with the dog. So, Garrett, do you get along better with the dog than you do with everybody else? I'm just asking, mind you, because we've been talking weather so far. Tina said that she didn't mind it if we talked weather because that's one thing she probably wouldn't argue about. Hey, Kay, good evening. Oh, you're not running late. You're just fine. There is no Teddy scissors claws. That might work. And well, Chloe scissor claws for sure. Your little sister's wicked, isn't she? I tried to get her to let me hold her a few minutes ago, but no way. I had to close my safe back here. That's Chloe's thunderstorm shelter. Sometimes when it comes a big storm, she runs and gets in that if it's open, or has. She doesn't always. Sometimes she just goes behind the couch or under the bed, but she's been known to. I keep a bed in there in the bottom of it just in case she needs to go in there and hide. That's something she has seemed to have gotten worse about lately. Okay, what did Tina say now? Oh, scissors claws, I guess. Gotta eat a yummy bratwurst for dinner. Sorry, not sorry, Carol. I like bratwurst. Wouldn't mind having one right now myself with the right kind of fixings on it. There is my lovely bride. What? What do you like on bratwurst, Carol? Or whatever kind of brat you like. I know there's different kinds, but maybe there's not. Maybe there's only bratwurst. And maybe I'm thinking of other things. Oh, yeah, sauerkraut. Everybody probably going to boo and hiss. I like mayonnaise. Oh, that's right. She is a vegetarian. Well, they make veggie sausages now of all kinds. Well, I think I have seen them lately in the grocery store. I like sauerkraut on mine. I like mustard. I like chili. And I do put mayonnaise on hot dogs and bratwurst. I must admit. Mustard and bacon for me. Oh, well, bacon's good on anything. Okay, Tina has had a veggie dog. Our youngest daughter used to, I think it was Kelly, used to, when she was little, she called them dogs. She eats Beyond sausage, but I usually buy the hot Italian ones. You know, I've wanted, not those. I've wanted to try some hot Italian. Brenda won't eat anything spicy, so I usually don't buy them because it'd be just for me if I did. Not that that's a bad thing, mind you. Sometimes it's kind of fun to have something in the house that nobody likes but you. Okay, let's get this party rolling. Oh, yeah, there's Phil Dalton, who has developed a recent in for Coleman's mustard. One of the things the English do well. Oh, yeah. I cooked my zucchini in bacon fat. Now we're being, Carol probably, now see, some of us would that would bother some of us because we like bacon fat. Maybe the doctor told us we couldn't have it, but Carol, she probably don't even care anymore. Oh, well, I guess everybody here's had Coleman mustard with me tonight. I'll have to check that out, I guess. At least I don't think I've had it. Unless Phil and I've had it on a road trip or something. That's possible. Oh, well, no, unless this is a new thing, and then that's probably not possible. Are you rested up, Phil? Phil went on a short motorcycle adventure last weekend. He and another friend were riding around the middle of Tennessee on some really cool back roads. It was really hot. I know that much. Tina says they had it with their corn beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day. Well, that sounds like that'd work too. He's fixing to do some brats and mild Italian sausages and cheap beer, and finish them on the grill tomorrow. I don't know if that matters when you're cooking with beer. I think most of it works out about the same. I tend to like hot things, Tina, or at least up to a degree. I'm finally able to eat more hot stuff. There for a little while, I got to where I don't know if it was medicine or what it was. I used to eat hot stuff, like hot Thai food, Mexican food. And I got to where I couldn't eat anything. My tongue was raw. I don't know. I just couldn't. I couldn't stand it for a while. But now I've gotten back where I can eat it again. Are you having company, Phil, or is this just for your own self? Phil's sister and his brother-in-law are moving back into the area soon, if they're not already up here. New Year's Day, black-eyed peas, collards, and pork roast with hot sauce. Yeah, that helped a little bit, Phil. Probably got a little bit cooler up there at night. You were up a little bit elevation wise and just a tiny bit further north. That's what I think it was too, Tina. I think something I was taking was making me really it didn't bother my stomach if I could get it past my mouth, but I just couldn't. The heat just suddenly everything I ate would just light me up. It would, I mean, oh well, that makes sense. Is Garrett still in here? Did he leave? He probably got tired of waiting. Well, we're going to talk about why we can't get along, and that was sort of my opening statement for tonight. Uh, Something I've been talking about with others, and we've been talking about here, and I think Garrett and I have had several discussions about that sort of thing. So I had a few questions about that and what people think. Did a chicken on what's Hispanic roast? I got to know this before we do anything else. What's a Hispanic roaster? Is that an empty beer can? No, sure it's not. Oh, I don't know if I've got many theories, Tina. I just want to talk about it. I mean, I have a few. Well, no, I do have a few. I said ideas or thoughts on the situation, and I'll expel upon them, and then you guys can fire at me. But there's a few things. And I have a question for Carol in here. I think you put a full beer can in the middle of it. Roast your chicken standing up. Okay, it's like a beer can then, but it's made for that. Do you get to put beer inside that, or is it just hollow? Just a stand, I mean. Well, I'll tell you a couple things I'm thinking on this. When we get down to a personal level, I don't think we respect each other enough, for one thing. And I think I am afraid. All right, hang on a minute, guys. Take a pause. My nose is really itching. Okay, let's try this again. Teddy, did you cause that? He's giving himself a bath. That's right. We have done that, Brenda. We need to do that again. It does the same thing. It's just a stone or a clay stone, bundt cake pan. Probably any bundt cake can would probably work. Why can't she kiss me for a while, Tina? What have I done? Well, Phil, you just keep coming up with things I'm curious about. How did that turn out? I'm thinking it didn't help any. Oh, well, she's in trouble. It's probably too late, Tina. My nose has been itching for a long time. So anyway, I think manners play into that. I don't think there's a soul in here. Well, maybe Phil, that I've seen in a Disney room lately, anywhere, who hasn't talked, or in a chat area, hasn't talked about how rude people have gotten, like at Disney World. And I think that's becoming more. And I've heard Garrett and them talk about it from California. They make a good mouthwash. We'll have to discuss that, Phil, when we can talk about that one-on-one. And I worry about that I think there might be several causes of that, depending on where you live. I do suspect that, like many other people, suspect it's got to do with parenting, how it's done today versus, well, I'm going to say it. Somebody's going to comment probably, but when I was growing up, we were a little taught differently. And even though we tried to teach our kids the way we were brought up, I don't know that we did as good a job, as our parents did. And I think that's one thing. And then I got a question for Carol. Is she still in the room? Carol, let me know if you're here before I bring this up. No, that's okay, Phil. You can keep it. I'll take your I'll take your critique and be fine. Unless you just want to get rid of it. I probably won't drink it, but I'll still get rid of it. Carol, I have a question. Maybe this isn't for you, but I know I've talked to older teachers that teach older grades, and I've heard some comments about this, and I've met other people who've commented about this, but I've heard some concern or comments or discussion about homeschooling and kids that grow up at home and up here. Sometimes that means they don't get out and do a lot of field trips or anything. So they tend to be one-on-one with their parents a lot, or ever how they do homeschooling, but they don't interact with other people a lot. They don't get to interact with other kids as much. They don't seem to know. And then as they get older, they don't really seem to know how to do that. It tends to be a problem. Do you think you see that as a teacher? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, so you're welcome to say, argue the fifth and not say anything, or stand on the fifth, whatever it is they say, to get James Ryan in here. But I'd like to hear what you think about that. But I do think that's part of the problem. And I everybody blames video games on everything. I don't know that that's it. Let's see. Tina says we were taught to respect each other. It seems like it's all about them. The world revolves around them. It's scary. I don't disagree with that, Tina. I mean, it's a fun. Here's another angle for that too. And I've been told this, and I hear this a lot. They tell you to take care of yourself. Take care of your individual needs and all that. Love yourself. And then we get around to whatever generations are here, X gens, Y gens, whatever they are. And it seems to be not just taking care of yourself. It seems to be all about yourself. Let me see what Carol had to say. Depends on the individual families. Many join homeschool communities and do a good job. Others just seem to keep the kids away from everybody. Well, I guess that's where I'm coming from. Because back here in the hills of Tennessee and this area, up until now, and I think maybe it has changed some recently, but that's kind of what happened. Kids were kept at home. They didn't get socialized with people. They just tended to keep them, like you're saying, away from everybody else. And when they do get out in the world, they really don't know how to treat other people. So they tend to be, again, more about themselves, or I think they say things and maybe act a certain way that is not necessarily respectful, or has considered of others' feelings, for example. And I'm not trying to get all mamby-pamby about that. But you should respect other people. And so anyway, I just feel like that's part of the problem. And let's see what Mr. Garrett had to say. Oh, I can't do that. Dang it. There he is. I agree, Carol. It depends on how the parent approaches it. I know one mom who sabotaged her daughter's life by not doing a good job. Yeah, well, don't be talking about Michelle if she can't come in here. Get them through the 8th grade, then bring them home and put it to work in tobacco patch. Yeah, well, that's kind of how they were raised here. Used to be if you got to the 8th grade, you pretty much graduated. I've known a lot of young men not young men, older men, when I was working as a kid, high school and up, that never completed past the 3rd grade. And then some made it up to the 8th, but very few of them ever went to high school. Wow, wake up, the thunder boomers going on. Well, yeah. In fact, she was her early 20s and then got her GED. Wow, that's a little delayed, isn't it? So anyway, I mean, you go places now and people seem to want to cut line, or assume you can cut line. Or let's say you're at Disney World. That's just to give that as an example, because there's always lines. And you and your kids are standing there, and one of your kids has to go to the bathroom. So you step out, one of you steps out of line, runs them to the restroom, and comes back. And then when you try to get back in line with your family, somebody decides to take offense to that, because suddenly you're two people in front of them, and by God, now there's four people in front of them. They're not going to stand for that kind of thing. And that, I don't get that. Garrett says he thinks it's hard to tell parents if they are qualified to teach their own kids. True. And Carol says the problem I see is that many adults try to spare their kids from taking responsibility for their actions instead of letting them make mistakes and accept the consequences when they're young. I'd probably give an amen from the back row on that one. I do think that's true. I think kids get bailed out way too much, in too many ways. I don't think they have to take responsibility anymore. They don't. Some kids go to work, get jobs, even in school, part-time jobs or summer jobs. If they've got the gumption for that. For example, our next door neighbor is the young lady that was going to be on my show Saturday, and that wants to fly, and it does fly. She's footing her bill for that. Now, I'm sure her parents may have helped her a little along the way, but she works. She has a job this summer. She's washed airplanes for people at the airport. She's done several things to, buy gas money and get rental money to take her and pay for her lessons. And she's got the gumption or the willpower, the willingness to do that, and doesn't expect it to be handed to her. I don't know. Sometimes I think we spoiled our kids in some ways like that, because we waited, we let them go until they were at least late in high school before they had to, make their own way, sort of. And I don't know, that kind of falls back on that old story. When I was growing up, parents always said, well, I want it to be better for my kids than it was for me. And then Garrett's going to just, upset the whole apple cart here. Garrett wants to know maybe a better question. Is it good that we all get along? Well, I think we should all be able to get along in a sense. I don't think we should all have the same answers or the same ideas, but I think we should be able to talk about them. I mean, do you want a child molester or a criminal element or someone who has beliefs that are the exact opposite of yours around you or your family? Well, now that's pushing the limit there. I think the answer to that would be no, but we don't always know who that is. And I guess in some ways we have to, you have to take that as it comes. That's a wide open question. I'd probably take somebody smarter than me to answer that, but I mean, anybody else is welcome to step in on that one. Kay says her dad didn't want me to have a job until I finished high school. He spoiled us in that way. He wanted us to enjoy it before we started working. Well, here's how it was in my house. Wait a minute. Let me catch up just a moment. As long as don't give bill responsibility in your kids. But we have a lot of opposing ideas. That's pretty common. Well, sure we do. And that is common, and it should be a good thing, because that's how you get diversity. And diversity usually makes for a much healthier situation. Once people don't talk or feel the same, they're written off. By certain groups, yes. We don't find for each judged. We don't find for each other. Trying to keep up. Oh, I didn't mean to click on that one, Kay. Sorry, I meant to read it first. Yeah, exactly. I mean, in my case, I have a brother who's 4 years younger than me. And when I grew up, I wanted things. I wanted to do things. I was interested in photography. I wanted a motorcycle, and eventually a car. And I bought all those things in time, by running a paper route and then working, another part-time job. And that was the only way I was going to get those things. I mean, my dad and mom acquiesced at some point and said, okay, I guess you can, if you really want a motorcycle, you're going to have to get a job to buy it. We can't afford to buy it for you. So I did. And I started working, early when I was 14, because I could get a license here when I was 14. And that's when I went to work. And I worked every summer after that. I worked in the afternoons. I worked on Saturday and Sunday mornings at Old Dark 30 to deliver papers. And yet my brother, on the other hand, who was more of a jock, he played sports in high school, baseball, basketball, that sort of thing. He had it different. Maybe he didn't want things. Maybe he didn't want the same things I did. Maybe he didn't want a car or a motorcycle or whatever. And so he didn't really work in high school. Now, he's a good man. He grew up to be a good man, and he had all the other values. But, I mean, it was a little bit different. And I think when we had kids, I think I wanted them to enjoy their childhood as much as possible. But I do think by the time they get into high school, they need to have that. They need to start learning that everything's not handed to you, and the money don't grow on a tree, and it's a hard road to get it. And honestly, sometimes I felt I wanted to. It really kind of galls me when people complain about how hard their jobs is when they've probably never dug a ditch or cut tobacco or hauled hay or done anything that was really hard. Okay, Garrett's going to open that big door here. I see something. We blame this race or that race for that, regardless of one's minority or majority. Garrett, do you think that's a reason not to get along? We blame even within the same race. Well, we do that all the time. We can argue about the best Star Trek episode and not have a fight, though, and not be at arms against each other. In fact, most of those things we should be able to. In case that then you had a good balanced childhood. And Garrett came back to say a similar looking person with the right black side face and the left white side face, and the other guy the opposite. But they hated each other. Tina says, I actually think that happens on both sides, Tina. If you don't agree 100% with some groups, you're called. No, I don't disagree. And I'm not just talking politics here tonight, but I don't disagree with that. We're guilty of that too. That's my point. I mean, it is more my point all the way around. So I mean, actually, actually, I'll have to admit something. A lot of the rude and hateful and really negative people I run into in stores are white. I mean, they've got chips on their shoulders, the same as somebody else does, any other race does. I think it's difficult and maybe even impossible to ask someone to not see race at all, because it's pretty obvious. Some people are African, some people are Asian, some people are European, and we're all different. And it is hard to not notice that. I don't think it necessarily means we have to take offense to it or be offensive towards them. Okay, Carol's got something. I actually like the eater. Carol says, Tina, Tim, Garrett, I agree. It's easier to look at someone and look for something different than to take the time to get. Well, yeah, it is. I mean, that's what we do a lot of times, isn't it, Carol? We take the easy way out. And sometimes it's easier not to look for good, not to look for common ground, than it is to take the trouble to get to know somebody. I think we're all guilty of that. I don't care what color we are. You could be purple with pink polka dots and argue about that. Hi, Diana. Welcome in. Where's that rotten, no good husband of yours tonight? Just kidding. Good to see you. Maybe Diana's in a cooler place. Is it cool up in Canada? We're all burning up down this way. Trying to figure out just how far north I have to move to get in some cool air. Man, the thunderstorms are rolling in. If I disappear, guys, it may be because the power went out. Hopefully it won't. Bad thing about the power going out is my coffee will get cold before I get it finished. I'll have to drink it fast. But as Morgan Freeman once said, why do we have to make it about someone's melon or facial features? Maybe it's obvious, but it doesn't mean it needs to matter. Well, the obvious part was what I was talking about. And no, I don't think it should matter. But it's hard to say it. I think we're a long way in this country from saying it doesn't matter to some people more than others. Thank goodness. Oh, hey, Mike. Well, don't get online if you're driving, buddy. I'd rather you stayed on your side of the road. Garrett had a woman one time. What? Oh, last year I was videoing. Told me it isn't a photo shoot in a practically empty aisle. Yeah, well, I think I've told this story before too. Last year sometime I was in Lowe's or either that or Home Depot. I can't remember. Uh-oh, Michelle's throwing Garrett under the bus. Ain't I missing that? Tina, hold that thought. I'm going to try to let me just put that on there too. Anyway, I was at Home Depot and I was in a scooter. Now, if any of you have known me for the last couple of years, I've not been able to walk very well, if at all. And so when I go shopping, if I'm going to be there for a while, if they've got electric carts to ride, I usually try to find one. And I can't, I refuse to feel bad about that because I'd walk and push somebody else around the store most of my life till all this bad stuff happened to me. So, and I was sitting there waiting on some people. That we had several people in an aisle, so I pulled over to one side. There was a pole. Let me get this straight. There was a pole in the aisle, a support beam, and then there were these people looking in the same shelves that I needed to look into for a pipe fitting. And this guy walks in and he stands there for a minute and he looks right at me and he says, you're not allowed, just because you're crippled, you're not allowed just to block the whole damn aisle. And he does not know how close he came to getting his skull cracked because I had I had this walking stick with me. And, that knob right there weighs about half a pound by itself and when swung at a certain speed. And it was really difficult for me not to. In fact, I did make a comment, and he everybody stood and looked at him, and he kind of shrugged and walked off. But he was totally out of line. I would never have approached somebody in a wheelchair or in a electric cart and complain because they were taking up too much space. I mean, who does that? Why do you do that? And it was just so, and it really took me by surprise. Let's see what he said about Michelle backs the bus over me when you guys aren't around. Yeah, I bet she does. I'm going to have to take car key side on that. Blame them. Yeah, well, that's true. It's easy to blame anybody you feel's an angel. You better be careful. I bet lightning strikes out in California just like it does back here. I don't know if that's what it's about, though, Garrett. I've dealt with people that accuse me of things simply for following rules. Yeah, that's another one, which really makes you wonder. That's always kind of made me wonder. I've gotten sort of in trouble with friends because I didn't want to pick on the younger kids when I was growing up, or because I didn't want to go along with some nefarious plan that they thought would be a lot of fun if they could get away with it, and I wouldn't do it. So You know, I don't know, and I'm not saying that to say I'm perfect. I've made my share of mistakes, plenty, and I've probably had my fair share of arguments with people that I was wrong. Carol, just remember this is on. It goes on the internet. It's out there forever. If I had Jeff, that wouldn't have happened. He would have just said, "You can't teach stupid." I used to work with a guy that said that a lot, and trust me, I used to not work with, but have to deal with a lot of stupid from time to time. I disagree, though. People learn stupid. People learn stupid well. He might have a good point there. I think he meant you can't teach stupid people. Yes, that's what I assumed. That's how I always took it, Garrett. So, have we become more antisocial? And I do think we are, at least to some degree, because of the internet. And I don't mean just us sitting here on YouTube. I mean this, since the internet came along in my lifetime, I can think of a lot of things. For example, it kept people from going to the library. Public libraries have shut down in a lot of places because people can stay home and get their information on Google or by looking things up on Google. And I just saw a really good show the other night or the other day. Brenda and I were watching it. I'm talking about doing my job. I didn't give people special allowances because they were a different race. Oh, I got you, Tina. All I got to say about that, as long as it went for everybody for the same reasons, and I don't see a problem with that at all. She's tried hard. Okay, let me see what Tina's got. Carol says, I see more and more people that want others to agree with them 100%. If you don't, then they act as if you disagree with them 100%. And I think that's part of the problem with our politics. And well, hell, I'll open that can. I mean, that's just it. We can't, if one side doesn't agree 100% with the other side, which is not ever going to happen, then we can't talk about it. They can't talk about it. We can't talk about it and get anywhere in this country. There's not been any real meaningful legislation in this country since at least the mid-90s. With one exception. I won't go there. Not tonight, anyway. And Garrett says, I don't like using the race car as an excuse for being called out. Although I do know you treat me a little worse. Oh, come on, Garrett. You're asking for it. She's going to stick those hounds on you. She can track you down, Can't blame that on race, Garrett. You never show your face. Garrett, she does have a point there. Maybe that's why, Tina. God, I'm not wanting to start a Republican Democrat kind of argument, but I am going to say one thing. In the mid 90s, there was a movement I think it was 94. The Republicans took the House or the Senate, maybe both, for the first time in a long time. They controlled both sides, and they agreed basically to not pass anything outside of what they wanted. And some of them were pretty extreme to the right. There was a gentleman whose name right now I cannot remember, but I could find this and prove this is fact. I saw him interviewed, and I saw the congressman or whatever being interviewed about it. But he came up with a contract for all of them to sign. So every Republican in the House or the Senate was supposed to sign that contract saying they would vote and act a certain way, which was basically they were going to hold the line and never forget that. Yeah, it was during Gingrich's contract with America. But there was a businessman involved with that, Phil. Do you remember his name? He was an outside guy who was kind of pulling the strings in that regard. And they all were expected to sign it, and if they didn't sign it, then they didn't get the support from their other comrades or certain money groups that helped them get elected, campaign monies, and they all signed it. And after that, both sides got so bad that they just would not agree on anything. And that's simplistic, but that's pretty close to the truth. Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name either. There was a gentleman outside the group that was taking at least some of the credit for that movement, and I don't remember who it was. I don't remember right now. But anyway, back to and that didn't help anything. I don't care what side you're on. But if it had been a Democratic Congress signing the same kind of agreement, I would have disagreed with that too. I mean, you can't just stop functioning altogether because you don't want to talk about things. Oh, Amy's leaving. Sorry, Amy. I do hope we didn't run you off. You're always welcome. Dick Army. That's him. I think that's him. Anyway, good night, Amy. I hope we didn't run you off. I hope you come back again sometime. Well, maybe. They gave Reagan a lot of credit for a lot of stuff that I'm not sure he actually did. I'm not taking up for him. I wasn't a fan, but I think he gets a lot of credit. I don't know if they used him or blamed him sometimes to make it seem like it was all his fault. I mean, I'm talking about later Republicans who have thrown him up like as a deity, and sometimes I think they weren't necessarily doing the right thing. Oh, was he? Okay. Well, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I thought there was somebody else, somebody lobbyist somewhere that was maybe head of the Republican Party at that time. I don't know. Oh my goodness, buddy, what's the matter? Teddy says he's leaving too. That's good, Carol. Keep thinking that way. That way they won't blame me. Anyway, I mean, it got to, let's say when I converted, and Phil gets a lot of credit for that, my parents and I could discuss things, our differences. Now, we didn't get too serious about them, I'll admit, but we did. And then I had an aunt that liked to argue politics with me, and some other cousins and things, and we all did it in a respectful manner. But then things started turning, and then it got to the point where we couldn't have a decent discussion. And I'll take at least half the blame for that, maybe more, because it just got to the point where you couldn't talk about anything without that being thrown up why that was good or bad. And we'd managed to get all those years by just talking it out, and suddenly we couldn't talk about things. Tina says, if I remember correctly, the Dems pretty much did the same thing the following congressional session. Reagan and Clinton were the last president that actually spoke to the other side. Well, that's probably true, Tina. You can. I'll probably get hate mail for this too, but I felt like there was still on the top, partly on the subject of politics, which I didn't mean to just make this about politics. When I saw there was a rise in very vocal and very well distributed radio personalities that really started preaching the gospel in that regard. People like Rush Limbaugh, Jones, few others that I can't think of right now. And there's always been those people, but they usually talk to more localized crowds, if you will. Once they got to be nationwide, it seemed like the volume got cranked up. Hey, Elena, aloha. Welcome in. Good to see you. They all probably went bowling together when the cameras were turned on. Well, I think they did a lot of things together. I used to read about that. You know, a lot of the Democrats and Republicans used to play golf together on days. Um, they probably went to the White House to bowl. You know, there used to be a bowling alley downstairs. They could go down there and shoot hoops. Gingrich worked with Clinton to get a lot of reform done. Not that I liked it. I had to work within the welfare reforms of that time. It was a mess. Well, I don't agree with everything they did there either, Tina. And after it's said and done, it seemed like it did make things worse. Garrett was going to admit, hey, Mike, you got in. I didn't think Diana was going to let you in. Boy, was she talking about you a while ago. I was going to mention how you were harassing an employee. Garrett, what are you talking about? Mike's even saying hello. Wait a minute, you're supposed to be driving. She said you were driving, Mike. Are you off the road now? I'm not going to be responsible for any traffic accidents. Carol, you know him well. You knew he might be making trouble. Oh, well, now he's trying to get trouble in Canada. Clinton was the greatest Republican president ever. Yes, I've heard that before, too. Oh, you're at home now, so you're talking safely. But anyway, like I said, this wasn't all about politics. I mean, this is about a lot of other things. I mean, not a lot of other things in particular, but so much in general that we don't try to communicate. And like I said, I don't expect everybody to always get along, but a whole lot more of us need to if we're going to ever get past some of the obstacles that stand in our way right now. Diana says he does wear the skirts. You guys, we're not in here to bash what people wear now. For all we know, Garrett wears skirts because we don't ever see him. And he started this conversation, or that part of the conversation. I feel we have a rule in this chat that we can discuss things and maybe have some arguments, but we can't go away hating on each other, okay? Which I know you won't. But I actually love having you in here. You're another foil that's a little bit on my side. You're only repeating what happened in the chat. Well, I know, but if it's going to make things hard for Mike at home, maybe you shouldn't. And Mike, that's a good. Again, I didn't mean to just talk about. Not that would raise some ire. Thank you, Phil. I was waiting on you to. I was actually waiting on you to say it. I started to, and I thought, no, Phil will. Everyone dying is the boss. Is she holding? I don't want to. I shouldn't say this out loud, but Mike, she's not holding you in some kind of distress. I mean, not. She's not got a weapon pointed at you or anything like that. That is the point, Phil. Because you don't have to. What's the girl say on there's a commercial on TV where the young lady says, blink twice if you're in danger. Blink twice, Mike. And Kay Atwood said, No, that's Tina. Nobody is willing to work with each other now. They're only talking to each other through the media and social media, which is a wrong way to do it, Tina. I mean, that is just, oh, there's Kay's comment. I don't completely understand why some people believe we can't have different opinions and still get along. I mean, I'm not Pollyanna Sunshine, but I try to understand that we all have different views. Well, I wish, I think we need more people that think that way, Kay. And that is part of the point. That's why I'm in here, Tim. Different opinions, but everyone is respectful. Oh well, thank you, Diana. I appreciate that. That's what we're trying. That's what I'm trying to build here. I just want us to also know that sometimes we can talk about some of the hard stuff, and yes, we can all have a kissing contest during Tim's streams, but when it ends, we all have to kiss and make up, hugs all around, slapping each other on the butt, and free Jeff hugs. If you're gonna, I don't think I'm even going to address that. And Karki says exactly, okay, we can listen to each other, disagree, and still coexist. And they ought to go back to bowling with each other. Yeah, they should. They ought to get out on the golf course and play a few rounds of golf, throw some clubs, bend them around the tree, or whatever it takes to get off some steam. It's almost a little bit like the old days and when I was growing up, and if two kids got in a fight in gym or something, the coach took them down, put boxing gloves on them, and let them wail the far out of each other till they quit, and then made them shake hands and go the other way. I tell you what, Mike, here's something you can address, and I give you guys credit for that. Opinions are just opinions. That's very true too, Elena. I think one of the greatest things. I love hockey. I'm an American who listened to hockey as a kid when nobody else knew what it was in Tennessee. At least I felt that way. And I love hockey, and hockey is rough. People beat the crap out of each other. They hit each other with pucks. They hit each other with sticks. Sometimes they just flat fight. And at that moment and that time in the game when their blood's up and they're in competition, I get that. But what I love about hockey is at the end of the game, at least important games, the last thing they all do together on the ice is line up and shake hands. They line up and shake hands no matter what. And you know what? You can watch those handshake lines, and those guys are talking to each other. They're laughing together. Even two guys that beat the crap out of each other 25 minutes ago, or 20 minutes ago in a period, they're talking to one another. They know each other. They probably don't agree with everything each other does, but they still recognize that they can be two different guys on two different teams, and they can play hard against one another and fight like the devil. But when it's over, and it's time to shake hands. And that's one of my, I love that about hockey. I've pointed that out to people for a long time. I said, look, they bloody noses, they do all that stuff. They're fierce competitors, but at the end of the game, they shake hands. And while I'm sure some of them don't want to, like I said, if you really watch, most of them are chatting with each other. They're patting each other on the back, maybe even apologizing, but they're out there doing it. And Mike, I give your country credit for that. You guys invented, well, I don't know if you guys totally invented it, but I think you did. The current game, I think it was a native game, but not sure about that. But as far as I know, Canada created hockey as we know it today. And Elena said, win arguments. It is. We can't walk away from a fight without somebody winning, Carol. I mean, nobody wants to have a draw anymore. We don't want to be called Pat Dye. I don't know if you guys maybe don't remember that, but Pat Dye was a football coach, and he went for a tie one time in a really important game, and a tie, he could have gone for the win. When Chuck and I were watching the game, we joke about what the fight's about. It's what they want on their pizza or what kind of ice cream they like. Sometimes I wonder if you're not right, Tina. I suspect and of course they could be whacking each other on the head saying, "Where are we going for beer after the game?" We can't hear what they're saying. One of the things I mentioned to people is that dialogue can happen when people come from a place of caring and are able to listen with an open heart and an open mind. That's words to live by. And Dean made it back in. Welcome in, Dean. Tina says bowling and stilettos, Dean. Oh, the stilettos were on Chloe's paws. That's about. It's not about winning. No, it shouldn't be. And I think somewhere along the way, when we shifted from being good sports to having to be winners, always having to be the winner, something changed in this country. I think that's another angle that may have changed even before politics did. But if you guys know, and some of you go through the same thing, if you're a college football fan, at least in the SEC, if your coach doesn't win the national championship after a couple of years of being in the school, they fire him and go looking for somebody else because the supporters, the fans, the so-called army, whatever they had put insert your team here, they're supporters of the team or the sport or the alumni or whatever. And if they don't agree, if they disagree with the coach, he ends up getting fired. And it's ridiculous. You can't build a team of those calibers in 1 year or 2 years or even 3 years, I don't think. But it's, but if we don't, it's that we gotta win, or he's gotta go. And it's pretty ridiculous, I think. Kay says, I think when we fight, both sides lose. I think that's a really good point, Kay. Carol says that we need to at least try to understand where people are coming from. Let me see where we're at now. Tina says, we don't debate anymore. Have you noticed? The moderators ask questions and each answer. Yeah. That's very, very true, Tina. And I can't even put that on any one particular person or politician because it seems to happen with most. Okay, Tim, repeat the last 5 minutes. People are distracted. Okay. I tell you what you do, Garrett. You go back and watch the replay and you catch up. And then if we're still here when you get done, give me your opinion. I'm not going to go back and repeat the last 5 minutes. For one thing, that'd be assuming I could even remember what I've said in the last 5 minutes. Sometimes this what you got to do, get these two individuals that are not getting along to duke it out and get it off their chest. Well, that's kind of how people used to look at it when two kids got in a fight, or at least two boys. I know a lot of times when two guys had a fight, and I'm not encouraging true violence in the school, but when two guys had to put on a pair of gloves, which made them almost harmless, and they beat the crap out of each other, 9 times out of 10, that never happened again. And most of the time, they might even have become friends. But that's what sometimes needs to be done. They have to get it off their chest. They need to get it out. And there's not very many outlets for that kind of thing anymore. I mean, a kid gets in a scuffle with a friend or another guy over disagreement, or a girl, and what happens? They get kicked out of school, and they can't get back in school. So now you got a problem with a kid in some cases, and now you've got a kid that's not in school, already going down a road that's not good unless they can get him in somewhere else or teach him at home. And he might have been a perfectly good kid who just didn't like his mother being called some name, or vice versa, or whatever. Or maybe not even that. Maybe they didn't like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with the peanut butter on top and the other one wanted it on the bottom. I mean, you never know. And it's just, but sometimes they just need to release steam. And no, they don't do. Another thing is they know it's easier for me to repeat it's easier for me to repeat yourself. Well, that's good, Garrett. I don't know what I'm not sure I understand that, Garrett. Play it at 150 speed, Garrett. It'll be fine. And then Mike says, if you can't back it up, you shouldn't be talking smack. That's what I think. Well, that's a thought. What was I saying? Now Garrett got me. Garrett, see what you did? You got me totally off. Oh, that's right. Was it Naismith that created basketball? Was that in Toronto? Phil knows. Come on, guys, get along. That's why we're here. I think it's also because people work at being offended. You're not guaranteed to be happy all the time. You're better off learning how to work through it. Well, that's a good point, Tina. A friend of mine once told me he got a job as a young man. It's a little bit different, but same concept. He got a job working somewhere, and he came home one day, and his dad said, "How's work going?" And he said, "Well, I think," and his dad was a country Baptist minister, just for the record. But he said, "I'm going to quit." He said, "I don't like it. It's not any fun. I'm quitting." And his dad just kind of probably took him by the scruff of the neck and said, "What?" He said, "Let me tell you something, boy. Nobody ever said work was going to be fun. You got to learn to deal with it." And I think a lot of things are that way. We have to learn to have a certain amount of. Oh, Naismith was in Kansas. Okay. Work. Tina, is this Tina? K. Tina, working through stuff helps make us stronger. That's why I feel our society is getting weak. Well, I know I'm sure I disagree with that, Kay. I think you're maybe right. I think we don't know how to work through things, and you're right. I think that has made us a weaker society. Need to be able to disagree and still work through it. No wait. And married husband just needs to learn to listen to the wife at all times. See, Carol, I knew you couldn't resist that. Your first line was good, and you could have just kept that wife secret stuff in between all you ladies, but no, you had to go ahead and make us men feel bad because we have to admit it's the truth. Dean is heading for bed. Good discussion going. Thank you, Dean. Thanks for coming by. My other cat showed up. And what did Kay say that I missed here? I think I missed. Let me take Dean off. Oh, working through stuff? Yes. Oh, he meant if I backed up on. Well, I shouldn't be upset at my. Jesus, Garrett. We're going to have a talk, my friend. Tina was going to say, Carol, what? No, wives are always right. Yeah, well, see, that's what I mean. But you keep that a secret so men don't feel so bad about it. If you got to go to work tomorrow, Dean, have a good day at work. She couldn't resist. Yeah, you couldn't resist. You just like to rub it in, Carol. Well, because men all know that's true, but we don't like to admit it, especially not in public. Probably get treats that tell you that. Well, I'll tell you something. He's got two on the floor here and he didn't eat. I'm not sure what's wrong with that boy. Good night, Dean. her husband is deaf. Well, that's one of our little secrets, which we'll not talk about because that's our little secret. I'm glad I'm able to learn from you married ladies. Brenda could tell you a story or two. She's being polite because she's got to live with me. And buddy, just let me tell you right now, she will do everything I tell her once I'm done doing everything she tells me. Or be more respectful if you have a disagreement. Yes. I don't keep secrets from my husband. I tell him everything he needs to know. Tina, somehow I believe that. I don't have any doubts in my mind that is not true. all hubbies are deaf. Just selectively, Diana. I have all kinds come up to me acting all tough, and I say, okay, game on, and God has bailed my butt out every time. They just walk away. Come here. Get that bug. Hang on, guys. I have an invasion. Look. Poop. Turn around. Come here. Well, that didn't take long to get his attention, did it? He used to have such good killer instincts too. Let's see. Elena says mine was a jet mechanic, and after his injury, he's sort of working. He has one sort of working there. Well, Elena, my wife can tell you that she can understand that, because I have two sort of working ears. Neither one of them work real good. Garrett might be trying to pick a fight. So the moral of the story is, have a faith in Jesus, and he'll make you look scary and protect you. I'm not sure that's the message. I never, I may not be the religious beacon that some are, but I'm not sure that was the message I ever got. I mean, you might be close, but I'm not sure. Oh, sorry, Tim got all Christian on. Yeah, well, you can't help yourself, Garrett. Like I said, this is a room where we can all agree to disagree or whatever. I think God must be shaking his head and saying, that darn kid. Thank you, Elena. That's a good comeback. And make sure you have a friend to help. Yeah, that's kind of how I've always done it. Have somebody behind you that's bigger than you are. Oh, nice. Sounds like a Garrett 331 intake noise. I guess that's what mine is too, Phil, because when it gets real quiet, I can hear that whine on both sides. Hey, Francisco. Phil and I both worked around those things for a long time, and you just don't always have hearing protection on. I mean, Phil's case, he might have had to go through the hangar to get with somebody, or look at something, or walk across the floor for something else, and you never knew what was running outside on the ramp. Sometimes, Mike says, sometimes you just need to disagree to agree with somebody that you don't share the same view as. And I think that's a really good point too, Mike. And I think we could do that. Sometimes I think we've made our disagreements way too personal. And maybe that's not the right way to say it, but I think that's part of the problem. Like if I told everybody I wanted to have Brenda braid my beard, I mean, would that be a problem, or are you guys going to fight with me over it? Sometimes we all need some intake noise to flush the nonsense out. Well, that could be, Garrett, but if you listen, trust me, if you listen to too much of it, you won't be able to hear. You really won't be able to hear. No need to get all roostered up. I can't remember who I heard say that the first time. I just bring my clippers. So you bring them on, big boy. But I still want to hear what they think, and most don't. Tina, I will have to say I agree that you do. Because you're here, and you and I both know that we don't agree on a lot of things or some things, but you're still here, and I really appreciate that. And I welcome you, and like I say, I would definitely consider you a friend. So. If you don't ever want to hear what they've got to say, how are we ever going to know how to fix the differences? If we can't ever talk about anything and I have to be honest with you, I regret this with my dad. We argued a lot in his later years about things, political things, religious things. I mean, just things that I wish we hadn't done. Now, we kind of got over it later, but in the end, I was a better son than that for most of my life. So I regret that. But we still should have been able to talk about it with both. That was our problem. We both had a damn temper, and usually we both would go off the deep end too quick. We never came to blows or anything. We just argued. Okay, I got to put this in here. I don't get thanked a lot. Thank you, Tim. I feel the same. I respect you. Gee, and we're right back to respect. Yes, we are. Because when you get right down to it, respect has as much to do with it as any other social norm. If we don't respect each other, we're not going to get anywhere. And I do think that's something we're not teaching kids these days. You know, I'm sure Tina and grew up in a time when I'm assuming they did this in the North. They certainly did it in the South. I hear you, buddy. But, you know, it was yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And I'm not trying to take us back to some sort of Pluton. I don't know what that would be. That would be Plutonic. But there was a certain manner of respect about that. And I still don't think there's anything wrong with the gentleman offering to open a door or holding a door for some lady, even if she's the biggest women's liberation movement leader in the world. I mean, I just think that's respectful for either side. Just to make one just an odd point, because I worked with a lot of women when I worked at TVA, and I mean that's one federal agency that had a lot of women working in high offices, and you know, I can't. Some of them, well, I didn't work with all of them. Some of them I might not have agreed with, but some of them we could sit down and talk about things, and it really was nice. I mean, it was good to be able to do that. What did Garrett say? Mutual respect. Yeah. To actively. Yeah, we don't know. And that's a good. I had to take class. I actually took classes. I don't say I had to. Come here. You're making too much noise. I've actually taken classes on how to listen better, and I don't always listen well. And that's not just a matter of hearing. I think we have to learn to hear again. We have to learn to listen. Well, maybe we should, Tina. I mean, sometimes I think we should, even if we don't say yes, ma'am, no, sir, that kind of thing. Even if we don't use the sirs and the ma'ams and all that, we still need that respect. Mike Cabral said, Tim, don't braid your beard, okay? Okay, Mike. If that's a problem, we could talk about that later. You know, I don't want. We need to. I have thought about. I would, but I'm gonna chase a squirrel, Tina. You can mark this one down on your squirrel sheet. Have you ever seen the movie Yellowbeard, Mike? I don't remember who played Yellow. It was a comical thing with pirates and that sort of stuff. And Yellowbeard had this big bushy beard, and anytime he went into battle or whatever they were doing, he tied braids. He had braids in his beard with flaming or smoking brands, they called them. So when he went into battle or anything, his beard, he had smoke curling all around his head. It was coming out of his beard. I just always thought that was really cool. So that's the squirrel. Elena says, I love how we're talking about this subject with a Winchester safe in the background. well, Elena, in that regard, I'm probably and there's another or two in this room too, but I'm probably an anomaly in some ways. But that's got more than the obvious in it. I mean, that's where we keep all of our papers and what little bit of jewelry we have, and you know, a few valuable things like that. And yes, there's some of those other things in there too. And the door is closed. Yes, the door. Which door are you talking about? The safe door or something else? I used to have it open sometimes because I just didn't pay any attention to it. And somebody told me I probably ought to keep it closed. Some people might be offended, so or take it wrong, or and I know YouTube has some strict things about guns. If you want to truly get along after respect, then it's grace and forgiveness, because we are all going to say something stupid at some point, offensive to someone. Well, I won't totally disagree with that. I don't think we don't have to be too religious to talk about that. Oh, Tina, I missed something. Garrett had said it's really started. I missed something. I'm not going to go back right now. I'll have to look later. Oh. And Brenda Pruitt says, she's entered the room. She said, a woman should always be respectful enough to say thank you when a man is a gentleman. Well, I appreciate that. It's how it used to be. Well, it can go. It can go both ways. That's where I say it shouldn't have to necessarily be about a man doing it for a woman. It should go both ways. And just because I'm opening a door for someone, sure as heck doesn't mean I'm looking for something. Uh-oh, it's been rolling up here, Phil, for a little bit. You're probably getting it now. Phil lives a few miles southeast of us, I guess. The one that got me is I see these dorks in suits standing outside of Pete's, and I'm pushing Gabe out the door, and none of them grab the door to pull it open. Yeah, that makes me mad too, and I see that way too often. It doesn't necessarily apply. Well, it applies to me now, because sometimes I can't hold the door open and get out because I've got a cane in my hand or I'm using a walker, and it's amazing how many people don't. But when I say that, it's also very hopeful and good that there are people who do see someone in my condition or that's physically disabled, whatever, and they do offer to help. They open the door. It's unbelievable how many people, mostly women, I think, but people that have been in the grocery store with me, or not with me, but at the same time, and they see me trying to get up off a cart to reach something on a high shelf, and they'll come over and offer to get it for me. Store clerks, just normal shoppers, just people there that happen to see, and they actually offer to, do a good deed, if you will. And I have been at least somewhat heartened by that. Let's see, I got way behind there. Why am I an anomaly, Elena? Well, just to throw it out there on the floor, I'm a gun owning liberal. I mean, a lot of people would say I'm pretty liberal, and I definitely have some liberal ideas. But I also have guns in my locker here, and I know there are people out there who think if you vote Democrat, you can't have a gun. And I grew up hunting, and I grew up with my dad going rabbit hunting and squirrel hunting, and while I don't have a granddaughter or son to take out and teach them the way of doing that respectfully, I still hold on to that. And I'll be honest with you, there are times when I think I'm not going to be the only, when some of those gun toters from the other side that are really coming in and armed, I'm not going to be the only Democrat standing there with no gun. Or I'm not trying to sound militant. I'm just saying that's why sometimes I feel like an anomaly in that regard. A lot of people I know seem to think that if you're a Democrat, you agree with everything that has to do with gun control or guns in general. And I don't. I don't have black rifles in there. I don't have an assault rifle. And I kind of do have problems with that, but I don't have problems with the overall rule of thumb. And tried to smash his shins. If he didn't let me through. Oh, I'm missing part of Garrett's argument. And Mike says, we have our son in the habit of opening doors for elderlies and ladies from a very young age. I taught him that. Well, good for you, Mike. Is saying yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, that kind of thing. Is that Canadian at all? Or is that, and that may be I don't want to say it's a Southern thing. I think it was an American thing at least. Yeah, we used to call it rude. Yeah, it still is rude, but they don't seem to understand that anymore, Tina. That's another topic we've discussed sometimes, and probably ought to here again. Why are some people so rude now? Getting some stroller bruises. And Garrett, smash those shins after you remove your son from the stroller, please. Yes, or move him out of the way at least. Yeah, nobody does, and I've actually had the door pretty much slammed right in my own face, and I'm sure you guys have too. I mean, we just don't really care. Let's see here. I went forward, and yeah, Phil be a gun-toting liberal himself, as Carol said. Get Gabe out of the okay. Even something like holding the door open can be a cultural thing. I had a guy in class from Korea, and he said they don't do that there, but it was something he learned when he came here. Well, I've heard that too, and Elena, and I know they're different cultures do different things, but I still bet they have respectful ways of treating one another. And that's Phil. And Garrett says, I love Bob strollers. They are shaped like a Roman phalanx formation. Oh no, I just went off the air. There I am back. Sorry, guys. That might be weather related. I know the day I get to you, Tim, you will go to your gun locker on stream. That's possible, Garrett. Then again, I may not have to go to the gun locker. You can take that any way you want to. No, only Democrats. I'm sorry, Tim. I had to. That's okay, Tina. I can take it. And Mike again said, I think it's awesome that you have a Winchester safe. Phil's actually got a nicer one. Well, good, Elena. I'm glad to hear that. We'll have to have a discussion about that some night. I'd really like to discuss gun control or some variation thereof, but that's another tough one to talk about. She's had it rough, Garrett. Let me tell you something. If you knew me when I met Brenda, she probably did have to teach me some manners. Well, I don't know. I had pretty good manners. Hey, you know what, Mike? That's kind of how I was raised too. My dad used to tell me that he better not ever catch me starting a fight, but he better not catch me running away from one either. He expected me to stand my ground. If I thought I was right, I should stand my ground and at least discuss it. Man, it's a big deal to us, Garrett. I'm really glad to hear that. Brenda taking a bow. Yeah, she probably should. Lord knows that's been a hard job. I love a story I heard one time or read somewhere in a book about what was President Truman's wife's name. I know somebody here knows that, and I know it, and I can't think of it. Anyway, the story goes that they were at a big function in the White House one time. A lot of people there, some kind of dinner or something. Harry Truman gets up and he talks, introduces some people, and gives a little speech of some sort. And in that speech, he came across something, and he allowed that was, just as far as he was concerned, that was horse manure. And the lady sitting beside his wife, it's Bess, was sitting beside Bess there and at the dinner table, and they leaned over and said, I'm so sorry, Bess. You think you could teach him not to say stuff like that? And Bess looked at her and said, lady, you have no idea how long it's taken me for him not to say the other word. So that's kind of how Brenda's had to beat me over the head for that sort of thing. Why are so many rude? Because their parents didn't tan their hides when they were. Well, Tina, maybe. I got mine tanned, and I'll tell you something. There's a big difference between beating somebody and getting a spanking, but somehow the two have merged in a lot of modern society. And I'm not advocating anybody beat anybody or beat their kids, or maybe they have other ways to punish their kids when they need. But kids do have to be corrected. And when I grew up, it was normal if you went out and tried to burn the woods down, and I know that story from personal experience. You probably got your your butt tan when you got home, and probably expected it, knowing if you got caught, that's probably what would happen. But I'll tell you something else. I didn't do it again, and I don't think that turned out to make me a bad guy or a bad person. And I probably didn't swat my youngins on the butt near enough. I don't not I mean, we did from time to time, but not a lot. Now I do think there's a time and a place for that too. I don't think in the middle of a Walmart with 50 strangers standing around staring at you is a good place to beat the crap out of your kid. And I've seen a lot of redneck or hillbilly women in this part of the country that would do something like that. Pretty regular. And it's kind of embarrassing in that regard, but you need to take them home. I feel like a scene out of Revenge of the Nerds. I'm not embarrassed. I'm a Democrat. Well, sometimes I am. I'm not completely, but sometimes I just wish we could get our act together. But I'm a bit of a redneck too, but only in the shooting sense, not in the KKK sense. Well, no, we didn't even have to go there. Oh, that's best. Okay, I got that. I'm way behind in chat, guys. I apologize. So hopefully you're all. Oh, and I don't really do moonshine. Well, I do, but it's not in the safe. It's in the refrigerator behind me. I've been thinking about going into the moonshine for personal purposes. I'd love to try to make some. Brenda Pruitt, do you know that if you're entering an elevator, you have to wait until people are out before you get on, unless they're not getting out? Well, that's a really good point, Brenda, and that happens so often these days. And it used to be, that's the thing I noticed at Disney, for example. And in the later years, that changed. People would just rush right into the elevator while you were trying to get off at your, say, a floor in a hotel or something. And they don't wait till you're off. People used to wait till folks got off, and then they would get on. And that's just another example of ill-mannered, rude people, I guess. That seems like common sense, Brenda Pruitt. Well, it seems like common sense, but there again, that's something we don't have common sense about sometimes. Also, when entering a building, you should always allow people out before you go in and out, and it goes back to the capacity rule. You might be getting scientific on us there. And Elena says, I guess it's just our perception of what is rude is just what our own expectations are, not necessarily that it's intentionally trying. I'll give you that, Elena, because you're right. You made a good statement a while ago. Different cultures are different about some things, and they're not always trying to be rude. Just may be how they were brought up and how they are. And at the same time, we may offend them by doing something that we do here and think it's okay, but it's not in their culture. So I really hate it when I do something like that and insult someone accidentally, because it's the last thing I want to do. I'd almost wish they would tell me and let me correct myself. And Mike says, I totally agree with you, Tim. I think there's more Democrats and Republicans that think the same way that you do, shouldn't judge people. I think they're out there, Mike. I just don't know why we're not being heard or seen these days. Didn't come give him hell Harry for nothing. That's true. Harry Truman was country, born and raised. whether you liked him or not. And I do believe in protecting the family. I do too. But what did I miss of something that said you shouldn't? Tina says, "Oh, believe me, Tim, I know the difference. Yes, you got spanked and didn't do it again. Yes. Now you see some parents telling their kids, think about what you did." Yeah. And you know what? It goes back to something. It goes back to the Christmas story kind of concept, Tina, where Ralphie says, teachers and parents always said the teacher said, those who know. It's talking about what's his name sticking his tongue to the flagpole. She was trying to get somebody to tell on them, or tell them who put up to it. And how'd she put that? Those who know, you know your guilt or something. And Ralphie said, "No, but all kids know that's not true. We all know it's better not to get caught." So it's kind of how it was. Well, I appreciate that, Brenda. I think they did too. I always thought they did. I think that's why sometimes we argued as they got older. I think we disagreed on things that I thought that they taught me not to do, but I probably didn't see it the right way. Yeah, I think Benjamin Franklin said that too, Tina. I think common sense isn't nearly as common as we wish. Oh, getting out of the elevator, I send Michelle first, and she takes out a few to make it. Garrett, when you just step over the bodies. Ellen says, Brenda put same thing with bathroom stalls. I'm like, can you let me out? And then is that really a problem, Elaine? I haven't been run over lately and getting in and out of a bathroom. Well, I hadn't been in one in a while, but that's interesting. And the good ones to clear the way. Okay, Tim, I have to go. Not because you're annoying. Thanks for the stream. Well, thank you, Garrett, and you have a good meeting if that's where you're going. Good night. I'm sure I'll talk to you soon. I don't think I've had my phone call this week, unless it was Sunday. One thing you can't teach is common sense, book smarts, but not common sense. Yeah, well, I don't know, Kay. I do think there's a certain amount of teaching for common sense if you're brought up the right way. I think some common sense is either inborn or not, but I do think that if you grow up with someone with good common sense, I think you're more likely to exhibit that as you get older. But no, I don't. You can't just teach it. I think there's some of it has to be in there. And I worked with a lot of people that were extremely book smart when I worked for, I consider myself a scientist, and I worked with a lot of other scientists that were very well read and very educated who weren't very what's the word I can't say it affable. Anyway, they didn't always get along well with others, and sometimes it wasn't because they didn't want to. They just sometimes didn't know how, and sometimes they sure didn't know how to do things out in the field. That's one thing I learned a long time ago. Those who have never run a shovel or a pickaxe or a wheelbarrow probably aren't the best ones to send out there to tell you how to do it the most efficient way. Yes. What else is being said? To any I have offended. I think you did too bad a job, Garrett. I think you'll be all right. But I will be talking to Michelle about some of those things you said. I highlighted them so I can come back and find them. And what is K? Okay, I got too far ahead. Tina, you can teach right from wrong, but you can't make them do right. That's true too. Is Mike leaving? Mike's probably got to go. Well, I'm getting ready. I'll be shutting down here soon. I've been on long enough tonight, so I'm starting to hurt anyway. I can't make it much longer. By 3 ways we learn wisdom. One is by book, which is the most noble. Wow, Elena, I hate that. I'm on my on my fifth shot. Maybe I shouldn't have cut my cable. We'll have to talk about that too, Phil. Maybe you better get that Roku ordered. Common sense is not common. Who was talking? What are the other ways, Tina? I may have heard that, but I wanted to hear the whole thing. Second is by example of others, which is the easiest. Third is by our own experiences, which is the most painful. Yeah, that's very well put, Tina. I'll have to remember that. I never liked spanking our girls and belittling, but tried using the perfect time to make a point. How they should act. My mom just yelled and threw the Bible at me, so to speak. Yes, she did. No, that's what's good about this group. We thankfully or hopefully we don't offend easily. I should probably put that in the bylaws. If you offend easily, well, I don't want to say they're not welcome because that'd be offensive, wouldn't it? Okay, guys, it is about time to shut this down. I thank you all. You've had a good conversation tonight. I'm glad, Phil. I'm really glad to see you here tonight. I hope you join us more. Tina, always. Your friendship means a lot to me, and like I said, the fact that we can be different and yet get along is, I think, that shows that it can be done. So that's where throw the book at me comes from. It probably is, Bill. Truth be known, that's probably exactly where it came from. Thank you, Kay. I'm glad you made it in tonight. I hope to see you again soon. And Mike's gone, I guess. But Diana, please tell Mike I said good night and hope he has a good rest of the week. I'll see some of you Saturday morning. I'll ask again if you haven't hit the like or dislike button, please do it before you leave. And I'd like for you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can know when we're going to be on more. You don't have to hit any of those things. As somebody says about money donations, sometimes it's never expected, but it's always appreciated. So if you do any of those things, then that's good. I'm just a poor little YouTuber that doesn't have a whole lot of subscribers, and maybe if I keep talking about hard subjects, I never will, or maybe I'll get a bigger crowd someday. Who knows? Atlanta, you're not even night time yet, so you have a great rest of your day. And I'm guessing you might still be at work. And Carol, I don't know if you're going to make it in Saturday morning, but I hope you do. Like I said, I hope to see some of you Saturday. And we're going to talk about canning this week. And Mark should be back. And in a week or two, the young lady who's flying, the young pilot, will be back in. She's gone this weekend. And they went to Oshkosh, which is a big deal. They've never been to that. And that's the largest private flying gathering in the world, I think, still. And they were going to go with some friends friends they've made in the flying world down there. Some of the other pilots from the flight school or the youth flying club they started, or the EAA, they are also involved in that. So yeah, I know, Elena. I totally understand that, and I don't expect you to be there. I appreciate the thought, though. Brenda, now you're telling tales. Okay, Tina. Again, Tina, you're always welcome. And yeah, I heard that, Phil. I just read that. In fact, he just died like 3 days ago. What to eat for dinner? Well, I'm probably not the one to ask about that. Although you've mentioned some things that always sound really good. I guess you could. Please don't hit me, Elaine, or take this wrong. You can always order a Hawaiian pizza. Oshkosh. I've always wanted to go to Oshkosh. I've been to some small fly-ins like that. Nothing like Oshkosh. Yeah, Phil, I remember his dad better than I do him. His dad was Paul. I can't say his last name. Paparenzi. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but I remember his dad. His dad actually was one of the founding members of the EAA, and I used to remember seeing him do air shows and stunts and movies and things like that. Him and the guy that flew the Commanders, and there was one other guy, and I can't think of his name, but those were kind of my sort of flying heroes back then. Okay, everybody, I'm going to shut my yap, and finish my coffee and get ready to go to bed myself. Yeah, and I think I saw him do a show in Daytona Beach, Phil. He seems like he used to do a comedy routine part of the time. He was an aerobatic champion. It seems to me like he did a routine one time where it was kind of like the drunk guy that gets in the Cub and flies it like a drunk man, and then somehow manages to land it and get out safely. I'm pretty sure I saw him do that one time. Could have been the old man, but I think it was Tom. All right, everybody, we'll see you later, Phil. I need to come see you or something, get out of the house. So maybe one day I'll do that if you're not going. No Hawaiian pizza? Oh, come on, Elena. I was just trying to help. Oh, he does the cooking. Well, good for you. I used to do a lot of our cooking when I could stand up. Oh, I'd love to have seen one of the old time air races, Elena. That would have been, I think, so exciting back in the day. All right, everybody, I'm going to shut her down. So good night. Thank you all. I love you all for being here. Thank you very much. And come back again next week. I'll try to be here again next week. And we'll see what the topic is then. Probably going to come out of this chat, actually, if I think about it, right? Jim Bailey didn't know what the drunk Cub Show guy was about. Oh, he didn't. I've seen it a couple of times, but I'm pretty sure I saw Tom or Paul do it once personally while I was in Florida. They had some pretty good sized air shows down there. Anyway, good night, everybody. I'm going to do it this time. Not just going to say it. Talk to you soon, Phil. See you later. See the rest of you guys later.